Good morning. You're getting poked by Laura. Please subscribe, become a member of my Patreon. It's free and you get access to this podcast, even if you are not a huge fan of mine or you don't like my particular approach or voice. You might have a friend, family, neighbor, coworker that you run into who has a health problem or a health issue that they're struggling with, that they're suffering with, whether that be physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. The medicine that I practice and that I am licensed in covers all of these bases, and it can be a good shift of perspective to hear a voice that otherwise you might not have access to, or those that you know might not have access to. So I am here offering that, so please subscribe, become a member of my Patreon, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube where you can watch my live streams that I put out on TikTok live and then upload to YouTube. So a little bit of an existential topic today. I had a request to discuss spirituality. That was it. That was the request. Can we talk more about spirituality? And I'm going to talk about that from my particular perspective. I will go through, my general history with religion, which I do not consider to be per se spirituality. People use religion in many different ways, and that is not to be dismissive. That is to simply acknowledge that religion and religious practice and spirituality, these concepts can be very different for different people in terms of how they define them and certainly the role that it plays in their life. So I will speak from my perspective, and I will tell you as much as I know how my perspective was shaped and formed, so you understand where I'm coming from. And hopefully there's something there that is of service to you, that is of help to you. Now, another thing I want to mention is that I would love to have conversations, interviews on these topics. So if you are someone who is interested in any of these topics, you can do a couple of things. You can leave me a comment on Patreon by becoming a member. You can leave me a comment on YouTube and subscribe to my channel. You can also email me. My website is niceneedles.com. By the way, you can find me as Nice Needles on all of those services. So lots of ways to send a question or an interview request. I would love to record some episodes with some of my listeners or someone that you might know. So I grew up in a very conservative area of the country, West Michigan. When I lived in West Michigan, it was the church capital of at least the country. It might have been more than the country, but we had more churches like per square foot, than anywhere else. Lots of churches in West Michigan. Christian conservative culture, Christian Reform, Methodist, Calvin College is in West Michigan, Hope College, lots of Christian colleges where I grew up. So I grew around a very conservative Christian community. I was raised in a Catholic environment. So I went to Catholic school and I attended Catholic church. I went to Catholic school 5 days a week. We usually attended church at least once during the week, and then I also had weekend church, and I also had catechism once I left that school. So Catholicism was a huge part of my upbringing. I related as a child, as I think many children exposed to Christianity do, to the teachings of, as it was presented to me, Jesus Christ, love thy neighbor, the golden rule, kindness, the kinds of things kids are going to naturally, I think, relate to. So those were sort of the things I took from that. But in terms of the actual dogmatic practices of Catholicism, it didn't resonate. I never connected. It didn't pluck anything deep for me, but it introduced me to the idea of, something else, I suppose. But I wouldn't say I really had a direction or felt particularly called to anything or inspired by anything. I think it was just more, this is what you're born into, and this is what you do, and this, that kind of thing. And so I was pretty secular without a spiritual practice of any kind. And because of the circumstances of my life, I was physically, emotionally, and mentally kind of pushed to my limits. Really before I even got into my early 20s. I had back problems by the time I was 15. At that point, they were like mid to upper back problems. nothing crazy. I went to a chiropractor. I had a lot of emotional unrest and discomfort. I was very upset. I was very angry, sad, dysregulated as a young person. In my teens, I would say, is when it really started. And then into my 20s, as I left that Christian environment that I was raised in, I started to explore things that just kind of came across my path. And it was about, a good 20 years of exploration and dabbling in things like yoga and meditation, things outside of the box totally of my life, like numerology, astrology, tarot cards. I was also at the time, though, attending university, so I was still living a very traditional life in some ways, getting a formal education. But my body slowly but surely was really letting me down. And so for me, the bridge I want to make here is that my bridge into a spiritual awareness, mentality, connection was through my body. And I can't speak for anybody else but myself. I have my own beliefs about our bodies. And maybe I'll go into that, maybe I won't, maybe that's for another time. But for me, the truth of my connection to what was outside of my personal lived experience, my personal body, came through my body. So the pain and discomfort of my body itself called me to look in new directions and to look deeper into what was going on. And what I found, again, slowly and with more precision, as I certainly went into East Asian medicine, when I went to med school to study Chinese medicine and Western medicine, you have to do both. I began to understand the body in new terms, non-Western terms. And for me, that was a profound revelation. Now, if we fast forward through all of the 4+ years of formal medical training, through all of the 4+ years of formal medical training that I had, and working with patients, fast forward through all of that, which is a lot. And in addition, I paid people some very hefty fees to help me to relearn how to exercise. I grew up an athlete, and I learned how to push myself and how to work out and how to achieve and how to win races and how to get better. But I never really learned how to connect to my body in a way that was healthy or work out in a way that was intuitive and about balance for my own life and well-being. It was always about performance-based. So I did also relearn some things in there about exercise and paid some really smart people to help fix my brain and my habits around exercise. So I had that going. I had med school going. But I think, for me personally, the more interesting thing in talking about spirituality was my discovery of one particular teacher who I still study with and learn from. They teach Iyengar Yoga. I believe Iyengar is Iyenguar, Iyengar Yoga. And I found this person while I was getting a divorce. It was during the year that I was separated and kind of going through a lot of upheaval in my life. And I found them on Instagram. They had been chosen for an Adidas ad, and they were writing and posting the stuff from that ad, and I just found their writing really great and interesting. And I looked up where they were, and they happened to be like less than a mile from my house. I thought they were maybe across the country, but they were less than a mile from my house at a yoga studio there. And I'd done yoga. I'd done flow yoga, hatha yoga. I'd never done hot yoga. We can talk about that another time. Ooh, hot yoga. That's a good topic. Let's write that down. Hot yoga. I'm writing it down. We need to talk about hot yoga. We really do. So I went to class just thinking, I like this person. I want to meet them. I like their writing. Yeah, sure. Let's go do a yoga class. yoga. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go get a workout. We'll stretch a little bit, whatever. No. That is not what happened. I found spirituality that day. I found my spiritual practice. I found my spiritual truth that day. And I think that's the first takeaway, right? Explore. Explore nature, explore movement, explore theology, explore whatever the hell you have to explore. You might find it through art. You might find it through an activity. You might find it through the sky. You might find it through travel. I don't know how you're going to find it. Okay, but this is how I found it. So I go to this class, think this person's cool, awesome, we're here taking a class. By the end of this class, I had done things with my body that I never dreamed in my life I would do. And I was doing it by the end of my first class. So Iyengar yoga, in the States at least, is very assisted. So we use a lot of props in Iyengar yoga. Bolsters, blocks, straps, blankets, chairs, ropes, lots of different props. And the purpose of these props is to get you into the position, into the yoga asana, the form, that is about opening and releasing and activating different parts of our body in very specific ways. So very opposite of flow yoga. Flow yoga is the way that it's been power yoga. Oh my gosh. There was a friend from India visiting in LA and they saw this studio that said power yoga and they just looked over like, what is power yoga? Welcome to the United States of America, where everything's bigger. The 72-ounce steak. Anyway. So the props are used to get your body, your shoulders, your hips, your legs, your arms, your chest, your rib cage, your low back, your sacrum, to get your body into the actually correct position, not the one that your Western competitive ego-driven mind is like, oh, I'm going to get into that shape, like whatever I have to do, right? And then you walk out and you've pulled your neck or your back's out or, you know, you have a headache and it's like, well, yoga sucks. No, you just weren't in the right position. You were ego-driven. So the props are sort of an anti-ego thing that ultimately kind of boosts the ego because, so by that first class, there were ropes on the walls. They're all anchored ropes. And I was hanging off of ropes upside down, flipping over. I mean, really, it was like wild. And it felt amazing. That was the thing after the first class. I felt so good. And I remember talking to the teacher about how often should I be doing this? Because I just came because I thought they were cool. And I'm leaving with this whole new body sensation, this feeling that I'd really never experienced before. And at that point, I was 44 years old. It was right before my 45th birthday. And I'd been doing yoga and all kinds of other stuff for years, for you know, over a decade, almost 2 decades. And I had never experienced anything like that. And the teacher said to me, you know, well, if you come once a week, that's going to be awesome for you. Like you're going to feel great. If you come twice a week, it's, you know, double it. If you come 3 times a week, they were like, it's going to change your life. And I didn't understand, but I was like, I'm in. So I signed up and I started coming regularly. And that summer, 2019 into the fall of 2019 was the best time of my life, from 44 to 45, the best time of my life, because what I was discovering, I hadn't yet fully made the connection. It took a while. But what I was discovering was that by slowing down in my movement and in what I consider to be exercise, and by really focusing with instruction on how to properly put my bones in place, which then put my muscles in place, which then meant everything that flows through me could flow more easily and with less tension and less gripping. Everything worked better. And what the teacher taught me and continues to teach me, because I'm still with this person today in 2025, is that when you make space in the body, because we spend all day holding our breath, tightening our muscles, we're always kind of under attack, right, by this extreme outside world of things that our nervous systems are not built to deal with. So the space inside gets really small. It gets really tight because we're holding and we're protecting all the time. And so this particular form of yoga, what it does is it opens up space. It opens up space in the joints. It opens up space in the attachments where bones are. It opens up space in the mind. And when you have that space inside, I think their argument would be, but it's going to be in my words, and I agree with this. This is where I found my spirituality. It gives that being, that light, that energy inside of you that is not your body, that is your mood, that is your mental state, that is your emotional self, space. And just like when someone is cramping you on the couch or in the car or in line or in a crowd, when you feel like this, it makes you grumpy, it makes you angry, it makes you hide. But when you have the space to move and be free and be comfortable and relaxed, you can take a breath and you can see things more clearly. And you can offer yourself grace. And you can obtain clarity of mind and presence. So when we make space in the body, we're making space for the observer, for that observer that is not the self. If you've ever meditated or tried to meditate, one of the concepts that will come up a lot is observing the self, or becoming the observer, becoming the witness, being able to watch, let's call it your mind, your monkey mind, right? We all know that feeling. I hear it a lot when people first start meditation of any kind. They say, well, I can't do it because my mind just won't stop. Not understanding fundamentally that is the point. The point is to take time and to observe this mind that runs you, that pulls you. The way to think of it is like, a monkey, literally, that instead of you having it on a leash, the monkey has you on a leash and it's running you all around. The mind is just running, and you become identified with that mind. You tend to think that is who you are. You inhabit that experience, which is why a lot of people live every day in the past or in the future. They're living with the regrets of yesterday, or they're living with the anxiety of tomorrow. They're not here right now because that monkey mind is going out here or back here. The monkey mind is running. So the point of meditation, any kind of meditation, and there's so many different kinds. This is a part of that exploring I was talking about. I would say the point, not everyone would agree with this. I would say, because I'm a very practical person and I'm looking for tools here in this life to make this life have more meaning and more depth, is to become the observer of that voice, of that mind, and to understand that you are actually separate from that voice, that you can actually watch it. You can let it do what it does. I personally do not believe, this is my personal view, that the point for me in meditation is to calm or quiet my mind. I don't claim to have any real agency over the craziness of my mind. My mind is brilliant and my mind is sick. It's both. It's just what a mind is. A mind is Looney Tunes. But I actually do have the ability to witness that process, to step back from it. And it's the same thing with the body, getting back to the yoga, right? We become so identified with tightness, pain, discomfort, injuries, illnesses. We become identified, so we become that thing. Even if only in part, we become so identified because why? Because we are not recognizing that I am not my body. I am not my mind. I, whoever that is, whatever that is, can actually observe both of those things. This is what the practice of mental or physical or both types of meditation, I believe, are about. It's about becoming a witness to your experience by which these parts of your body allow you to have. So the mind is a gift, but it's not who you are. Your body is a gift, but it's not who you are. And when there is pain and discomfort, we can become over-identified. They can begin to run us. They have a leash on us. And we forget that we have this ability to step outside and to witness them and to learn from them and take information from them that can then help us to make new choices, gain new perspective. And so yoga for me did that. And it made a lot of sense because some of these places in my body that were so chronically stuck, so chronically locked down from just day to day, it doesn't even have to be extreme circumstances, that the space has gone, these tiny little micro spaces in muscle and bone, even in our viscera and in our bowels, these tightnesses, these stagnations that we can loosen and open through very specific movements, coordinating some of that with breath, being supported in these movements in a way that it actually gets us into the right place to really open and clear out old patterns, to recognize new patterns, and to feel like the bounty of that, to feel the harvest of clearing things out of your own body and to make space. It's like, oh, that's where I find spirituality, because there's room for my spirit, for that being who witnesses, to move and to feel some vitality, to feel some renewal, to feel some space. And it's a really hard thing to describe if you've never experienced it. And if you've gone to yoga classes where, you're going through a routine, you're like, well, I don't really know, and you're just kind of moving through, like, that's great. Great, get some exercise. Personally, I think things like that, where it's too fast, can ultimately do harm, because it's creating unhealthy patterns, because we're not really fixed into these things right. So spirituality. I'm going to do another, probably a follow-up to this on spirituality, but about, let me see what I wrote down, because I think it was the same person who asked this question. Spiritual healing, programming. Yeah, and uncovering, discovering, unveiling true self. Yeah, I want to talk about that too. That's got a connection here. But, and maybe for you, Catholicism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, maybe these things for you have personal connections and memories, or things that mean things to you. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we all find it in different places and ways. But to not forget, I would say, the spiritual being that is you, and that comes together to form the body and the being that you are. There's a lot there to explore. Mind, body, spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it. Energy body. And there are techniques to help you with that, to guide you. So wherever you find it, I hope you do. I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful to recognize all the abilities that we have that in day-to-day, Western culture, we really don't talk about or look at or value, especially right now in the year of our Lord 2025. I think a lot of people need support that cannot come from the outside. It cannot come from another person. It cannot come from a friend. It cannot come from a family member. It cannot come from a neighbor, the government. It's got to come from inside. It's that flagpole, that we have inside. So yeah, we'll do another episode, talk about the true self, talk about some of that in Chinese medicine terms. This is more of a personal story around spirituality. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to let me know. You can make a comment on my Patreon. Please become a member for free to get access to my podcast, or subscribe to my YouTube, where you can also watch the live stream. You just got poked. I hope you liked it. Have a good one.